What's going on, duelists? ACP here with GoatFormat.com, here to bring you our deck guide to Chaos Control. So we're going to start by talking about what is Chaos Control exactly. So Chaos Control is really just distinguished by these things. It plays 3 Chaos Monsters, 3 Metamorphosis, 2 Scapegoat, and then for Darks, it plays your staples like Breaker, Sangan, Tsukiyomi, but also, quite importantly, Thousand Eyes Restrict, and then Magician of Faith, Magical Merchant, and then either Skilled White Magician or Shining Angel serve as the deck's light monsters, rather than the more common Thunder Dragon Chaos. So, Chaos Control strategy is really just having all the answers, just dealing with whatever monsters the opponent throws at it. And that's because it plays 3 Metamorphosis for Thousand Eyes Restrict, and then the 3 Chaos Monsters as well. And it also excels at being a very sort of like stable and flexible deck in the early game because either the Skilled White Magician or the Shining Angel can be used either like aggressively to attack for damage or defensively to wall out damage. So it has one of the stronger early games, and it's really good at also fighting battles of attrition. It's just very focused on card advantage and not so much trying to attack for big damage. So Chaos Control's core interactions. First one you've probably seen before. Magical Merchant plus Metamorphosis equals Thousand Eyes Restrict. But in this deck, what's particularly good about using a light monster with Metamorphosis is that it gives you a light and a dark. So in Goat Control, having to use your Merchant or Magician of Faith for Metamorphosis rather than your Sinister Serpent or Scapegoat token, that's usually considered like kind of a negative, but here we consider it more of a positive because it gives us that light plus dark setup. And if you happen to be playing the Shining Angel version of this deck, you also have a couple of other extra synergies, and that is that when Shining Angel dies, it can search not just DD Warrior Lady, but Magician of Faith or Magical Merchant, and then that can combo with something like Tsukiyomi or Book of Moon, which can get out of hand. So being able to do that kind of gives the deck like a few cool mind games. And briefly here, I'm just going to show you sort of like the deck skeleton. These are all the cards that you should probably be playing in the deck no matter what. What you fill it out with is, going to come down to personal preference to an extent. So for the monsters, we've got our Chaos Monsters, the Staple Dark, Staple Lights that we talked about, and a Sinister Serpent because it's Sinister Serpent. We've got our staple spells, our Trinity, Heavy Storm, Snatch Steal, that sort of thing. Those 2 Scapegoat, 3 Metamorphosis, and then we've got our staple trap cards. And here is an example Angel Chaos Decklist. This is the version of this deck that I'm currently playing at the moment, but this is definitely meant to be an example. You don't need to copy it card for card. Feel free to make some of your own personal changes. And then we've also got a Skilled White Chaos Decklist. And it looks pretty similar, except you have, the Skilled Whites instead of the Shining Angel. Often Skilled White likes to play the Dark Mimic level 1 as well. That way you've got the extra level 1 target. And strengths and weaknesses of Chaos Control. So, like we alluded to earlier, Chaos Control is really good at just winning the war of attrition. So, when you're going up against Goat Control, they have their 3 Metamorphosis, and then you have your 3 Metamorphosis, but you also have that 2 Chaos Sorcerer to kind of give yourself the extra edge. So, if you're both sort of sitting there answering each other's monsters, usually Chaos Control is going to come out on top there. And rather, the way that Goat Control wins is not really so much by winning the war of attrition, because they can't really do that. But they're usually going to try to set up like either a big game shot or try to get you with a Morphing Jar. So as long as you watch out for those, you should be doing pretty well against Goat Control. And the other nice thing about Chaos Control is how well it deals with like any kind of aggression, because really everything that you're playing can serve as an answer to an aggressive play, right? So skilled White Magician, solid attack, high defense. Shining Angel, can search copies of itself to block hits. Chaos Sorcerer, notoriously good against aggro due to that, easy +1 plus the wall. And then Metamorphosis and Scapegoat, also very classically good cards against aggression in most cases. However, dealing with set monsters is kind of the deck's biggest weakness. So, Chaos Control, its worst matchup is arguably Flip Control because it plays so many flip effects. And, Chaos Sorcerer, of course, can't banish face-down monsters. Thousand Eyes Restrict can take face-down monsters, but then it has 0 attack, and you don't really have a good way to pressure your opponent afterwards. So, dealing with those set monsters can definitely be kind of awkward for the deck. And also, although this deck plays 2 Scapegoat because of the, synergy with Metamorphosis, it's a little more situational than usual. You kind of have to be more careful about how you use Scapegoat than you do with Goat Control. If you have a Shining Angel, you activate a Scapegoat, then you can't use your Shining Angel's effect that turn because it special summons. And since it doesn't play any tribute monsters, you got to watch out and make sure you don't Goat Lock yourself. That is, have no open monster zones because you used Scapegoat. So be sure to check yourself before you lock yourself. There are a few common misconceptions about Chaos Control also. I'll discuss those just to close out the video. Some people will say that, Chaos Control is, not a real deck, that, Thunder Dragon Chaos is, the only way to play Chaos. That's definitely not true. Both decks have gotten very good results, and they have different strengths and weaknesses. One isn't really strictly better than the other. So whether you play Thunder Dragon Chaos or Chaos Control, that's kind of going to come down to what you prefer and maybe what the metagame is as well. Another common assumption for the people playing the Shining Angel version is that if you open multiple copies of Shining Angel and or DD Warrior Lady, that's like a really bad hand and you can't come back from that. And that's not really true because keep in mind that unless your opponent activates Trap Dust Shoot or something, they're not going to know what your hand is. So if you play a Shining Angel turn 1 that maybe doesn't have a lot of targets in your deck, your opponent doesn't know that and they might not attack it. There's a decent chance they'll use something like Sakuretsu Armor or Nobleman of Crossout or their Thousand Eyes Restrict to get rid of it because they don't want you to use its effect. So, don't freak out if, you've got a hand like the one pictured here. I've definitely won with these kinds of hands all the time. It's not very difficult to do. And last common misconception is just the name Chaos Control itself. There's a lot of confusion about what even is Chaos Control, what does that mean? In our Discord the other day, I heard someone refer to a deck with Reasoning, Monster Gate, and 3 Chaos Sorcerer as Chaos Control, which that's definitely not Chaos Control at all. And the reason for the confusion has to do with the fact that a lot of Chaos decks are arguably control decks, so therefore if I'm playing a control deck with Chaos monsters in it, isn't that Chaos Control? Well, not generally. That's not really the convention that the community uses. A better way to describe this deck would probably be Good Stuff Chaos, right? Because it's sort of a a sort of high flexibility, low synergy, strong early game kind of Chaos deck. But the convention has been to call any Chaos deck that has the 3 Metamorphosis, Scapegoat, and no Thunder Dragons as Chaos Control. So even though you could argue that Thunder Dragon Chaos, well, that's also a control deck. Yeah, we kind of, that's kind of its own thing. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. So I want to say thanks for watching, and of course at goatformat.com we're trying to help grow the GOAT format community, and you can help us do that by visiting our website, of course subscribing to this YouTube channel, liking our Facebook page, and following us on Twitch. We try to stream at least once a week. That being said, you can read the text version of this guide, of course, at goatformat.com. So that's it for today, guys.